2 days before my daughter's wedding, I was fixing the latch on the back storm door when Claire pulled into my driveway. I had the small, red-handled screwdriver in my shirt pocket and a rag over one shoulder. Since Ruth died, I had learned to hide inside little repairs. Make the house sound useful because quiet rooms ask questions a man does not always want to answer. Claire stopped behind my pickup and sat there with both hands on the wheel. That was the first wrong thing. My daughter never sat in a driveway unless she was rehearsing something. I opened the kitchen door before she knocked. "Hey, Dad." "You're early," I said. "Wedding errands don't usually run through my place." She smiled too quickly. "I was nearby. I wanted to check on you." Claire checked on me by text. A heart, my blood pressure, a picture of flowers. She did not drive 40 minutes from Pittsburgh to see if I had eaten lunch. "Coffee?" "No, I can't stay long." She came in anyway. Her eyes went to the old crew photograph. 6 men in hard hats, black pipe behind us, winter light across the yard. I was 43, welding hood under my arm, Ruth's scarf around my neck. Claire used to tell people her dad built things that crossed states. That day she looked away from the photograph like it had embarrassed her. Only then did I notice the flat white envelope in her purse. She had tucked it beside her phone, but the corner showed. Claire saw my eyes move and pressed the purse shut. She stayed by the sink first, looking into the backyard so she would not have to face the table. "Dad, I need to talk about Saturday." "You need another check?" I asked. The line came out too fast, but it was the language we had both practiced. Tuition gap, first apartment, car repair, dress deposit. I asked how much. She said she hated asking, and I sent the money before either of us had to say what we were afraid of. I built that bridge, so I cannot pretend she invented it alone. "It's not that," she said, and sat only after I pointed to the chair. The purse stayed in her lap, closed under both hands. "Daniel's family is different," she said. "His firm partners are coming, people from the arts board. It isn't a backyard thing." "Different from us?" I asked. She looked at the crew photo, then at the smear on my cuff. I almost rubbed it away, and that made me angry with myself. Claire took the movement as permission. "I don't want you uncomfortable," she said. "It will be a polished crowd. I know you don't like being put on display." Care always sounds better when it arrives before the knife. I set the rag beside my coffee cup and made myself ask the plain question. "Uncomfortable because of the chairs, or because people will know your father worked with his hands?" Her mouth tightened. She did not say no. That silence moved the conversation from worry to planning. Then she pulled a folded timeline from her purse. My name was not on the family photo block. I read the line twice before I looked up. "Where is father of the bride?" Claire took the paper back as if I had handled it wrong and said they had not finalized every grouping. When I reminded her the wedding was Saturday, she said, "That is why I came now." She opened the purse and set the white envelope on the table. It made the flat sound of money already counted by someone who hoped counting would settle the matter. "I want you to have this," she said, "for the suit or whatever you need this weekend." I did not touch it. I told her I had bought a suit, and when she said she knew, I said, "Then say what it is for." Her face changed. For 1 second, she looked like the little girl who had brought home a bad report card. Then she found the grown woman's voice again. "I think it would be better if you didn't come." The refrigerator clicked on. Ordinary sounds kept moving because houses do not stop for sentences that split a family open. "Better for whom?" I asked. She said everyone. When I said Daniel's name, her eyes moved away. "Does Daniel know you are here?" She answered that he knew I was tired and that the month had been hard. I told her that was not my question. Claire pushed the envelope closer. "Dad, please, don't make me sound cruel. I am trying to keep one day from becoming awkward. You hate crowds. You would sit there with Daniel's partners and feel judged." "By them or by you?" She flinched, and that gave me my answer before her words did. "You're not unsuccessful," she said, which meant the word had already been sitting in her mouth. "But my guests don't know your story. They will just see—" She stopped, and I told her to say it clean. Claire looked at the photograph again. She hated that it was there to hear her. "They'll see an old mill worker," she said. The house, the truck, the way you talk. I don't want my wedding to become a story about where I came from." There it was. Not successful enough, had many American coats to wear. Not polished, not current, not the right look. Old mill worker. I reached for the envelope then. Claire's shoulders dropped, almost with relief, and that relief cost her more than any insult. I opened it. $200 bills and a pale blue sticky note folded around them. "For the weekend, please understand, C." $2,000, I said. She said it was not a payment. I asked what it was. "A way to make this easier." When I asked if she meant easier for me, she said, "For both of us." I put the bills back under the note. "No, say what you want to buy." She stood up so fast the chair legs scraped the floor. "Why are you doing this? I came here carefully. I came here because I love you, and I know you will be miserable there." I asked again what she was buying. Her eyes filled, but she did not cry. Claire had learned long ago that tears worked only if she could still control the room. "Your absence," she said. The word did not echo. It just stayed on the table between us with the money. I nodded once. "Good. Now we both know what this is." She waited for anger. I gave her none. Anger would have let her leave, saying grief had made me unstable, and she had been right to protect the wedding from me. I picked up the envelope and held it flat against my palm. When she asked if I was taking it, I said yes. The relief came back too fast. She thanked me, and I told her not to do that yet. I took a pen from the junk drawer and wrote on the blue note, "Thursday afternoon." Claire gave me $2,000 to stay away from her wedding. I signed my initials. On a pipe job, if a measurement mattered, someone wrote it down before pride could change the number. Claire watched my hand move and said it was not necessary. I told her it was necessary for me. When she said I was making it ugly, I said no. I am keeping it from becoming prettier later. I put the envelope beneath the crew photograph. The men in that picture looked down at it without moving. We had spent our backs and lungs making other people's heat and light reliable. My daughter had eaten from that work, studied from it, dressed from it, and now wanted the work hidden before dinner. Claire picked up her purse. "Daniel doesn't need to know about this." That was the first time she said his name with fear in it. I asked what she had told him. She said I was still not good with big days since Mom, and that I might come by later, privately. "You told him I chose this." Claire lifted her chin. "I told him what would hurt him least." She moved toward the door, then turned back. "Please don't call him. Please don't make him think I did something cruel 2 days before the wedding." I looked at the envelope, then at my daughter's hand on the doorknob. "Claire, you didn't come here because I would be uncomfortable. You came because you were afraid Daniel would see me and understand something about you." She opened the door. "You took the money, Dad." I told her I knew. "Then keep the peace." She left before I could answer. Her car backed out carefully, as if even the gravel had to believe nothing serious had happened. I stood in the kitchen until the engine faded. Then I moved the envelope under the crew photo and left it there, untouched. For the first time in years, money had come from Claire to me. It had not felt like help. It had felt like a price tag. And the one person she most wanted protected from that price was the man she was about to marry. After Claire left, I did not open a bottle, call Daniel, or drive to the venue like a man in a movie. I washed the 2 coffee cups, though only one had been used, put the screwdriver away, and opened my banking app. That was not revenge, it was inventory. The first transfer was from 3 years earlier, 2 weeks after Ruth's funeral. Claire had needed help with a lease deposit in Lawrenceville. After that came a car repair, a certification course, half a dental bill, and a florist deposit. The wedding dress payment sat there too, labeled by Claire as temporary, though neither of us had treated it that way. Each line had felt harmless when I sent it. A father helping his only child, a widower keeping one bridge open. But on that Thursday afternoon, the lines changed shape. They no longer looked like separate acts of care. They looked like a language I had taught her. Ask softly, take quietly, avoid the harder sentence. I wrote the amounts on a yellow pad, not all of them, only the ones tied to her new life and the wedding. I left out groceries, winter tires, the small emergencies people should not have to beg for. If Daniel ever saw the list, I did not want it to look like a father billing his daughter for love. Under the totals, I wrote one question. Was Saturday planned without me before she brought the envelope? That question mattered more than the money. If Claire had panicked, cruelty still had a chance to be panic. If she had already removed me from the room, the envelope was not a desperate mistake. It was a receipt. Sam O'Leary called while I was still staring at the yellow pad. "You home?" he asked. "I got that photo cleaned up." Sam had been promising it for a month. His grandson worked at a print shop and had sharpened the old crew picture until it no longer looked like it had spent 30 winters above a kitchen radiator. I almost told him not to come. Then I looked at the envelope and said yes. He arrived 20 minutes later in a pirate's cap and a windbreaker, carrying the photo in a cardboard sleeve like it was a certificate. Sam was 70 and still walked as if a foreman might yell from the far end of the yard. He saw the envelope before he saw my face. "That wedding money?" he asked. I told him it was a different kind. Claire had asked me not to come, had paid me to make the asking easier, and had told Daniel I was too tired for big days. Sam listened without interrupting. Men who worked around pressure lines learn when silence is safer than a spark. Then he slid the restored photo across the table. The new copy showed what the old one had hidden. My burned glove, Sam's cracked knuckles, the frost on the pipe, the scarf Ruth had tied around my neck. The picture did not make me important. It made the cost visible. Sam tapped Ruth's scarf in the photo. She used to brag about that. I said Claire had been 8. 8-year-olds don't lie about pride. I put the new photo beside the envelope. For the first time that afternoon, the table held 2 versions of my life. The money Claire wanted to use for my disappearance, and the work that had paid for the woman trying to disappear me. That was when I decided to call the venue before I called Daniel. The place was called the Foundry Room. Men like me used to walk into brick buildings to clock in. Our children rented them for exposed beam photographs and signature cocktails. The woman who answered sounded busy enough to distrust every call. "Foundry Room, this is Marlene." I gave my name and said I was Claire Miller's father. The pause was small, but I heard it. "Mr. Miller," she said, "what can I help you with?" I asked one narrow question. Was I on the seating chart for Saturday? Marlene did not answer quickly. A careless person would have soothed me with nonsense. A careful one checked whether a truth belonged to her. When she said seating was handled by the couple, I told her I was not asking her to judge my family. I was asking if there was a chair with my name on it. Paper moved near her phone. A keyboard clicked. Sam stood by the counter, cap in his hands, watching the envelope. Marlene said there had been an earlier family table version. My name had been on that one. I closed my eyes once and asked about the current version. It did not include a place card for me. There it was. Not panic. Not a Thursday mistake. A changed document. When I asked who requested the change, Marlene confirmed only that Claire had requested the current layout. I asked if Claire gave a reason. After another pause, Marlene said the guest mix was formal and I was not the right fit for the room. I told her she did not have to characterize it further. I wrote Marlene's name, the time, and the exact words on the yellow pad. Not the right fit for the room. Somehow that sounded colder than old mill worker. A room had no heart, but my daughter had borrowed its mouth. Marlene lowered her voice and said she could not get in the middle of family decisions or send me the floor plan. I told her I was not asking for either. "Good," she said, but she did not sound relieved. "Because Ms. Miller has been very specific about keeping changes centralized." That gave me the next fact. Claire had not only removed me, she had managed the route by which the removal could be questioned. I thanked Marlene and hung up before she had to regret being honest. Sam let out a breath through his nose. Sam asked if I was calling the groom. I looked at Daniel's number in my phone, saved after the engagement party as Daniel Price, architect, as if a man needed a job title in his future father-in-law's contacts. I said, "Not yet." The phone rang before I could decide. Claire's name filled the screen. Sam pointed toward the door. "You want me gone?" I told him to stay, answered on speaker, and told Claire who was in the room before the room became an argument. Claire asked if I had called the foundry. I said yes. When she demanded why, I said, to find out whether my chair disappeared before or after you brought the money. Silence came through the phone, then a car horn from wherever she was. You are making this so much worse. I asked, then what? She said, then it had to be. I said Daniel's name and her breath changed. Do not call Daniel. I told him you decided not to come because big family things are hard for you now. He was kind about it. Sam looked at the envelope. I wrote the sentence down while she was still breathing on the line. Told Daniel I decided not to come. Claire, I said, if Daniel asks me, I will not repeat your version. She told me not to answer if he called. She said it too fast. Sam heard it too. I asked if Daniel had tried. Claire said everyone was busy. I told her that was not my question. For a second I thought she had hung up. Then her voice returned lower, stripped of the wedding planner polish. He wanted to FaceTime you after the rehearsal dinner. I told him you were asleep. I wasn't, I said. I know, she answered. The words were small, but they closed the day tighter than the envelope had. Claire had not only planned my empty chair, she had already stopped my voice from reaching the man she was marrying. My phone buzzed against the table while Claire was still on the line. Daniel Price appeared across the screen. Sam said nothing. The crew photo lay between us, sharp now, every face clear enough to accuse no one and still answer everything. Claire asked if it was him. I said yes. She said, Dad, please, not like this. I asked how then. After the wedding. After the lie had been blessed, photographed, toasted, and packed into thank you cards. After my absence had become a gentle family fact. After Daniel had shaken hands with a version of me that Claire made up because the real one did not fit the room. I reached for the incoming call, but Claire spoke first, quick and panicked. If you love me, don't pick up. That sentence stopped my hand for one beat. It had stopped me many times in other forms. If you love me, don't ask. If you love me, help. If you love me, understand. A father can mistake surrender for love for a very long time. The call ended before I touched it. A second later, a text came from Daniel. Mr. Miller, sorry if this is a bad time. I just wanted to check in before Saturday. Claire saw the silence on my end and understood the call had passed. Thank you, she whispered. I looked at the envelope, the yellow pad, and the restored photo. Don't thank me, I said. You haven't bought what you think you bought. I learned most of what happened next from Daniel later. Some of it I understood that night from the way Claire's voice changed when his name came up. Daniel had called me from the hotel lobby after the rehearsal dinner. The dinner was one of those polished, casual things young professionals call relaxed, because nobody wears a tie and every plate still costs too much. Claire had been moving from table to table, accepting compliments about the flowers, the city view, and the restored brick. When Daniel asked whether I had seen the final timeline, Claire told him I was asleep. He asked why she knew that. She said she had talked to me earlier and that big family days had been rough since Ruth died. That answer would have passed if she had left it alone. Claire did not leave it alone. She added that I hated crowds, that I had asked not to be fussed over, that she was trying to respect my grief. Each sentence sounded kind by itself. Together they sounded rehearsed. Daniel noticed because grief was not a decoration to him. His father had died when Daniel was 16, and Leah Price had raised him with one rule about dead parents: never use them as an excuse for a lie. Did he say he didn't want to walk you in? Daniel asked. Claire said the aisle plan was complicated. She mentioned lighting, timing, the photographer's angles, the string quartet cue. Daniel listened while the answer walked around his question. Then he asked to FaceTime me. Claire's hand went to his wrist. Not hard, just fast. Not tonight, please. That was the moment Daniel stopped hearing concern and started hearing control. He did not confront her. He started watching the seams. Leah Price noticed before Claire did. Daniel's mother had the kind of quiet that made people confess. She found him near the lobby windows, looking at his phone, and asked if he had reached Frank. Daniel said no and nodded when she used my name. Leah did not know me well. We had met twice, once at the engagement party, once at a Sunday brunch where Claire kept steering talk away from my work. Leah had shaken my hand with both of hers and asked what part of the old pipeline system I had worked on. Not because she needed the answer, because she understood that a man should not be reduced to Claire's dad and then hidden beside the coat rack. Daniel told her Claire said I was tired and did not want to fuss. Leah listened, looked across the lobby at Claire laughing with two women from the venue, and asked if Frank had said that himself. Daniel said no. Then you don't know it. That was all. No accusation. No mother-in-law performance before the wedding. Just the clean sentence Daniel needed. Leah's own husband had missed too many ordinary days by dying young. She was not sentimental about using grief as stage dressing. Claire came over before Daniel could answer and asked if everything was okay. Leah smiled with enough courtesy to keep the peace and enough distance to mark it. Daniel was trying to check on your father. Claire said she already had. Leah answered, "That is not the same thing." The sentence sat there politely, which made it more dangerous. Claire's face held, but Daniel saw her fingers tighten around the champagne flute. Later, he told me the wedding began to feel less like a day they were building and more like a set he had been invited to stand inside. The next morning, while I made toast I did not want, Daniel called again. I saw his name and let it ring once. Not because I meant to ignore him, but because Claire's sentence still had a hand around my wrist. If you love me, don't pick up. By the second ring, I reached for the phone. It stopped. A text arrived from Claire before I could call back. Please don't answer him this morning. He is anxious. I will explain after the ceremony. There it was again. After. After the vows, after the pictures, after the lie was easier to keep than undo. I put the phone beside the envelope and waited. Waiting was not surrender this time. It was choosing not to spend the truth on the wrong moment. Daniel, meanwhile, had gone to Claire's hotel room door. He did not go in. Bridesmaids were moving in and out with garment bags and makeup cases. He stood in the hallway and asked whether Frank had told her himself that he did not want to come. Claire's friends went quiet in that way people do when a private fight steps into public carpet. Claire smiled at them first, then at Daniel. Claire asked if they could avoid doing this in the hallway. Daniel told her to answer him there. She said I was grieving. He said that was not an answer. She said I had taken Ruth's death hard. Daniel did not move. Did he tell you he wanted to stay home? Claire looked past him toward an open door, toward the safety of hairspray and bouquets, and women who would call his question pressure if she gave them the right face. I am trying to protect him, Daniel asked. From me? That was the question she could not dress. One bridesmaid dropped her eyes to the carpet. Daniel saw it and understood that more people knew there was a story than knew what the story was. He stepped back from the doorway. I am going to see him. Claire followed him down the hall in her satin robe, one earring in and one still missing, warning him that the first look was at 10:30 and the photographer was already there. Daniel told her to move it. The photographer could take pictures of flowers. That was not cruelty. Daniel was not loud, not theatrical. He sounded like a man moving one object off a table so he could see what was underneath. Claire caught his arm near the elevator and said everyone would ask where he went. Daniel told her to say he went to meet her father. When she accused him of making me more important than the wedding, he looked at her hand on his sleeve. No, I am finding out whether you made the wedding more important than him. She let go as if he had burned her. For 1 second her face opened and the frightened girl inside it showed. Then the mask came back. If you love me, not today. He almost stayed. I believe that because he told me later, and because love does not vanish just because suspicion arrives. Daniel loved her. That was what made the hallway dangerous. If he had not loved her, he could have left with clean anger. Love made him check whether the woman in front of him was still reachable. If I marry you today, he said, I need to know who is missing and why. Claire whispered his name, but he was already walking toward the elevator. Leah stood at the far end of the hall. She did not smile. She did not nod. She simply stepped aside so her son could pass without making his choice look like a performance for her approval. My phone rang again while I was still at the kitchen table. This time it did not stop after one ring. and Claire was not on the line to hold my hand away from it. When I answered, Daniel sounded out of breath, though he was trying not to. He apologized for calling on the wedding morning. I told him I knew who he was. He said, "I need to ask you something directly. Did you choose not to come today?" I looked at the envelope, the yellow pad, and Sam's restored photo. Every object on that table wanted to speak at once. That was why I kept my answer narrow. No. Daniel was silent for 2 seconds. "Can I come see you?" The easy thing would have been to say yes too quickly. A wounded father can turn a groom into a weapon if he is not careful. I had no right to do that to him, even after what Claire had done. "You can come," I said, "but I am not asking you to punish her for me. I will show you only what happened in my kitchen and what the venue confirmed. You decide what you do with it." Daniel asked me to text the address. I said Claire knew it. He said, "I need it from you." That sentence told me he had stopped walking through her version. I sent the address and then moved through the kitchen like a man preparing for an inspection he had not requested. I did not clean the house beyond wiping the table. I did not change into the suit hanging upstairs. I left the envelope where it was, under the crew photograph, and placed the yellow pad beside it. Sam offered to stay. I told him no. This truth needed one witness first, and it was not my old friend. 28 minutes later, a dark sedan slowed in front of my house. Daniel Price stepped out in his wedding suit, looked at the little brick porch, then at me behind the screen door. He did not look angry yet. He looked like a man who had driven across town hoping the truth would be smaller than his fear. Daniel stood on my porch in a navy wedding suit with a white rose pinned to his lapel and no coat, though the mourning had a bite to it. For 1 second, he looked too young to carry what he had driven there to carry. "Mr. Miller," he said, "Frank is fine." He nodded but did not use it yet. A man who comes to a future father-in-law's house on his wedding morning and still reaches for manners is either trained well or scared enough to need rules. Daniel seemed like both. I opened the screen door. "Come in." He stepped into the kitchen and stopped before I offered a chair. His eyes went where Claire's had gone 2 days earlier. The crew photograph, the envelope under it, the yellow pad beside it. The difference was that Daniel did not look away from the picture. He leaned closer. "Is that you?" he asked. 43. "Pipeline?" "Compressor station tie-in outside Washington County. Winter job." He nodded as if the words meant enough without pretending they meant everything. Then his eyes lowered to the envelope. "Is that what I think it is?" "Depends what you think." "Money." Yes, I did not touch it yet. I wanted him to see that I had not staged a dramatic reveal. The envelope had been sitting there before he came, carrying its own accusation without my hand helping it. Daniel looked around the kitchen. The clean counter, the latch parts in a dish, Ruth's blue mug by the sink, the suit bag hanging on the basement door. He saw the ordinary pieces Claire had folded into the word uncomfortable. "She told me you were too tired for the day," he said. "She told me you would never know about the envelope." Daniel's face changed, but he did not reach for the envelope. I respected him for that. Some men grab proof before they know what proof is. I slid it across the table and kept my fingers away once it reached him. "Open it." He unfolded the flap. The blue note came out first, then the money. 20 $100 bills sat in his hand like something dirty that had managed to stay clean. He read Claire's note, then the line I had written on the back. His lips moved once around the date, not the amount. "She gave this to you?" "In this kitchen." "To stay away?" "Yes." "And you took it?" "Yes." He looked up then. That was the first dangerous second. I could see the question trying to form behind his eyes. If I took the money, what exactly was I claiming to be innocent of? I answered before he had to ask. "That part is true. I took it. I did not spend it, hide it, or send it back. I wanted the price to stay visible." Daniel set the bills down slowly. "Why not call me right then?" "Because a father who calls the groom 2 days before the wedding can sound like a man trying to win a fight through panic." I needed to know whether this was one cruel visit or a plan. He looked at the yellow pad. And? I turned it toward him. I had written only the narrow facts: selected transfers, Marlene's name, the first seating version, the current version, Claire's phrase about the room. I had not written, daughter ashamed of father. A man should be careful when he labels someone else's soul, even when that soul has just cut him. This is what I know, I said, not what I guess. That is less than I want, he said, and more than I had. Daniel picked up the restored photograph next. Who are they? I named the men from left to right. Sam O'Leary, Miguel Torres, Big Wayne Carter, me, Pete Yusko, Aaron Bell. Claire used to ask about this picture, I said. Ruth would tell her which winters were hard and which jobs paid for school clothes. Your fiancé knows exactly what kind of life paid for hers. Daniel held the photo with both hands. The white rose on his lapel trembled once, either from his breath or from the force it took not to move. She told me she put herself through everything, he said. She worked hard. That is true. But not alone. No one does. He set the photo down beside the money. Now the table made its argument without me. The old crew, the envelope, the notes, the removed chair. None of it was enough for a court. It was enough for a man deciding whether his wedding stood on a lie. Daniel rubbed both hands over his face. When he lowered them, his eyes were wet. He looked embarrassed by it, which made me like him more. I lost my dad before he saw me graduate, he said. If he had been alive, and I had paid him not to come to my wedding, my mother would have dragged me out by the collar. Your mother has good hands, then. He almost laughed. It broke before it became a sound. I wanted to comfort him. That surprised me. In that kitchen, he looked less like a judge and more like someone who had arrived at the edge of his own life and found the floor moving. Do not decide anything because I am hurt, I said. He looked at me. How am I supposed to separate that? By asking what you can marry. Daniel's phone began to shake on the table. Claire's name lit the screen, vanished, then returned with a text. Where are you? Everyone is asking. Another came before he touched the first. If you're with my father, remember he took the money. Daniel read it without expression. The room changed around that sentence. Until then, the envelope had been ugly proof of Claire's choice. In one line, she turned it toward me. She is not lying, I said. You need to hear it from me again. I took it. Daniel put the phone down. Why are you helping her case? Because if the truth only works when I hide the worst part for myself, then it is not truth. It is strategy. He looked back at the envelope. The tears were gone now. Suspicion had dried them. That was the danger arriving in his eyes. A father with money on his table, a bride saying he accepted a deal, a wedding morning running late because an old man had decided to show receipts. Claire called again. Daniel answered on speaker. Where are you? She asked. With Frank. She made a sound almost like a laugh. Of course you are. Did he show you the envelope? Yes. Then he showed you he agreed. I gave him money because he said he understood. He took it, Daniel. He didn't call you. Now he is making this into a test on our wedding day. The words were fast, frightened, and useful. A lie travels better when it carries one true fact inside it. Daniel looked at me. For 1 second I saw him measuring not Claire's cruelty, but my silence. Why had I waited? Why had I written notes? Why had I let the call ring out the night before? I had answers, but answers can sound like excuses when a clock is running toward a ceremony. I folded my hands on the table and said nothing. Claire filled the silence for me. Ask him why he kept it. Ask him why he didn't put it back in my hand if he was so offended. Daniel did ask, but not with her voice. Why did you keep it? Because if I returned it, Claire could say she had only offered help, and I had misunderstood. If I spent it, I would be what she is saying I am. So I left it where the truth could not move. Daniel stared at the envelope as if the bills had become heavier. Claire was still on the phone, breathing hard. Daniel, she said, please come back. We can talk after. After what? He asked. After the ceremony. His eyes closed. When he opened them, tears stood there again, but this time they did not embarrass him. Claire, I can't walk into that room blind. The line went quiet. I almost told him to go, to save what could be saved, to let an old father swallow one more thing for his child. That old reflex rose so quickly I had to grip the edge of the table. Then I saw the suit bag on the basement door, the one I had bought to stand beside her, and the reflex died. I am not coming to your venue, I told him. I am not making a speech. I am not asking you to punish her, but I will not say I chose this. Daniel nodded once. The decision had not fully formed, but its shape had entered the room. On the phone, Claire's voice sharpened. He sold his place, Daniel. He took the money. Whatever story he is telling you now, he took it. That was the hook she threw, and for a moment it caught. Daniel looked from the phone to me, then to the envelope. The strongest proof against Claire had become the cleanest weapon against me. I pushed the envelope toward him, not as a gift, not as payment, but as the ugly center of the morning. Yes, I said. I took it. Now decide whether that is the whole story. The room held still after I said it. Yes, I took it. Now decide whether that is the whole story. Daniel did not answer. He looked at the envelope as if it had become a third person at the table. Claire stayed on speaker, and for once she understood silence better than words. She moved into it. Daniel listened to me. I went to him because I was scared he would be miserable. He has been lonely since Mom died. He doesn't like crowds. I offered money because I didn't want him left out of the weekend. He accepted. He let me believe he understood. That version used pieces of truth. I was lonely. I disliked wedding small talk. I had accepted the envelope. Those facts stood there like clean boards from a rotten porch. Daniel rubbed the heel of his hand against his forehead. The white rose on his lapel had bent toward the table. Frank, he said, and this time he used my first name. Not warmly, but because manners had lost their map. Did you tell her you understood? I could have defended myself. I could have said she had forced the word absence into the room. I could have pointed at the note, the seating chart, Marlene's phrase. Instead, I heard my own question from 2 days earlier. Say it clean. I let her leave thinking the deal was done, I said. Claire exhaled through the phone. See? Daniel stood up. The chair scraped. He did not walk out, but his body had already voted once. For a moment, the whole morning tilted toward Claire's version. An old father hurt by a decision he had accepted, using a groom's conscience to reopen a bargain. That was the first time I thought I might lose the truth while holding every piece of it in my house. Sit down or go, I told Daniel. But don't stand halfway. Halfway is how lies get comfortable. He looked at me, angry now, and the anger was fair. You are asking me to choose between the woman I love and her father on the morning of my wedding. No, I said. I am asking you not to marry a virgin. Claire snapped. You hear that? He is doing exactly what I said. I did not answer her. I looked only at Daniel. I took the money because I have spent years answering pain with money. Claire learned that from me. When Ruth died, I stopped asking my daughter hard questions. I sent checks. I fixed things. I made being useful feel like being close. The confession cost more than I expected. It took Claire's cruelty and tied one end of it to my own hands. Daniel sat back down, not because he had forgiven me, but because the shape of the fight had changed. A manipulator hides his part. I had just put mine on the table. So yes, I said. When she put that envelope down, some old part of me did what it always did. I took the thing that made the room quieter. Then the quiet told me what I had done. Claire's voice came smaller through the phone. Dad, stop. No, you wanted him to know I took it. He should also know why that mattered. I helped teach you money could stand in for the sentence you were afraid to say. Daniel looked from me to the phone and said her name. She did not answer. When he asked if she had given me money so I would stay away, her silence finally stopped defending her. Daniel did not need a confession yet. The gap where one should have been had already changed the room. Claire, Daniel said, I need you to answer one clean question. Did you give him money so he would not come today? Her first sound was almost a sob, but it had no tears in it. She said she gave me money because she thought it would help. Daniel asked with what? With the weekend, with not feeling pushed into something he hates. He told her that was not the question. I watched Daniel become calmer as she became more careful. Calm can be more frightening than anger because it means the person has stopped trying to rescue the conversation. Yes, Claire said finally. I gave him money so he would not come, but you are making it sound monstrous. Daniel closed his eyes. I did not. I looked at the phone because my daughter deserved to have one person in that room see the truth arrive, even if it arrived ugly. When he asked why she had not told him, Claire said he would not understand. Daniel told her to try him now. Your friends, your mother, your firm people, they all have a way of looking at things. I did not want them looking at him and then looking at me. There it was, cleaner than any note on my pad. Not the right fit had become him and then me. I felt the old pain move, but I did not let it take the floor. This part belonged to Daniel. Daniel said his mother had asked about my work. Claire called Leah polite. Daniel corrected her. Decent. That was when Claire made the next mistake. She said, Decent people don't drag private family shame into a wedding morning. Daniel looked at the crew photograph. Which shame, Claire? His work, or what you did with it? That question did what my notes could not. It moved the morning from family discomfort to the edge of a decision. Claire said she was hanging up. Daniel told her that if she did, he would come back with only what he had now. She stayed. I turned the yellow pad toward myself and put my finger beside Marlene's name. There is one fact you should hear from someone other than me, but only if she is willing. Claire's voice sharpened. Do not drag the venue into this. I am not dragging anyone. Daniel can call from his phone. He can ask one question, nothing about motives. Daniel understood before Claire did. He dialed the foundry room on speaker. While the line rang, I felt the old temptation to overbuild the case. Read every transfer, explain every year, prove every hurt. I held it back. Too much proof can start to look like hunger. Marlene answered with the same guarded brightness. Daniel introduced himself and apologized for the timing. I need to confirm a planning detail, he said. Was Frank Miller removed from the current seating and place card list? Marlene went quiet. I could imagine her looking at the day's schedule, the vendor calls, the room waiting to be opened. Mr. Price, seating requests come from the couple. I understand. I am not asking why. I am asking whether his place was there before and removed. Another pause. Yes, an earlier family table version included him. The current version does not. Daniel's jaw tightened. Who requested the current version? Claire requested it. Claire made a small, broken sound through the other phone. Daniel asked one more question. Did she use the phrase, not the right fit for the room? Marlene closed her answer down carefully. That phrase was used in a planning call. Thank you, Daniel said, and ended it before Marlene had to carry more of our family than she should. The kitchen felt larger after the call, as if one wall had moved back. Not safer, just less crowded with Claire's version. Daniel picked up his phone from the table and said he had to go back. When I asked if he meant to get married, he looked at the envelope, then at me. To ask her one question in person. Claire heard that and begged him not to do this in front of people. Daniel told her not to make him ask twice. When she asked what, he said, whether you can stand beside me today and say you did not buy your father's absence because you were ashamed of him. No one spoke. Outside, a school bus hissed at the corner. Somewhere in the neighborhood, a dog barked at nothing useful. The world kept doing its ordinary work around a wedding that had stopped being ordinary. Daniel ended the call. He put the blue note back into the envelope but left the money out, lined up on the table like a count nobody wanted. He said he was sorry. When I asked for what, he said, for seeing this late. I told him he had seen it before the vows, and that was not late. He nodded, but the answer did not comfort him. It would not have comforted me either. A man can arrive before the legal moment and still feel late to the human one. At the door, he stopped and looked back at the crew photograph. He asked if he could ask for something after this was over. I said it depended on what this became. A copy of that picture. That was the first thing he asked for that did not belong to the wedding. I told him yes. His car pulled away from my house near 10. The ceremony was scheduled for 11. I stood in the doorway and understood that the truth had left my kitchen, but the danger had not. Claire still had guests, a venue, a photographer, a clock, and one true fact. I had taken the money. Now Daniel was driving back with all of it. Daniel drove back to the foundry room with 27 minutes gone from the wedding morning and no way to put them back. I know because I watched his taillights disappear and looked at the clock above my stove. I did not follow him. That mattered. If I appeared at the venue, Claire could point to me instead of the question. She could turn the morning into a scene about an angry father arriving to ruin the wedding. So I stayed where the envelope was, where the truth had started, and let Daniel carry only what he had chosen to carry. He later told me the venue looked almost ready when he returned. Florist buckets tucked behind a service door, a photographer testing light by the old brick, cousins in pastel dresses gathering near the bar that was not open yet. The building had been cleaned until its industrial history looked decorative. Even the rusted beams had been made safe for pictures. Marlene saw Daniel first. She was near the escort card table with a headset clipped to her jacket and a clipboard in one hand. Her face changed when he came through the side entrance. "Mr. Price, we are 10 minutes behind the first look schedule." "I know. Do you want me to move the photographer?" "Not yet." That answer cost money by the minute. It also cost calm. Marlene looked past him toward the hall where guests would soon begin to arrive, and Daniel understood the first pressure Claire still had. A wedding is not only feelings. It is vendors, timing, family, deposits, and a room full of people ready to believe whoever explains first. By delaying one decision, he had created a bill someone would try to assign to Frank. Claire came down the back hallway in her wedding dress with the skirt lifted in both hands. Without the music and the aisle, she looked less like a bride and more like someone caught carrying a costume through a place not meant for costumes. "Daniel," she said, and the relief in her face lasted only until she saw Marlene behind him. "I need to ask you one question," he said. "Not here." "Here." Marlene looked at the clipboard. "I can step away." "Please stay within earshot," Daniel said, "not as a judge, as the person who has to open that room if we go forward." That took Claire's first escape route. If Marlene left, Claire could later turn the exchange into tone and pressure. If Marlene stayed, she could not invent the whole shape of it. Claire lowered her voice. "You are embarrassing me." "No," Daniel said. "I am asking whether you can stand beside me today and say you did not buy your father's absence because you were ashamed of him." She looked toward the double doors where the hall waited. The florist was moving behind the glass. A cousin in a pink dress passed, saw Claire's face, and stopped too long before pretending not to. "I was ashamed of the situation," Claire said. "Which situation?" "The class thing. The questions. The way people look when they realize you came from somewhere rougher than the table setting." Daniel's face did not change, but Marlene's pen stopped moving. Claire heard herself then. Her eyes flicked to the coordinator, and anger replaced panic. "This is exactly why I didn't want it out here," she said. Marlene wrote, "Hold room opening" on her clipboard. The wedding had become an operational problem. Claire saw the note and panicked in a new direction. "Do not put anything in writing." Marlene's professional face closed. "I am tracking timing changes, not family details." "This is a family detail." "Then stop making it affect my room." That was the first hard thing Marlene said. It did not save Daniel or me. It simply made the venue real again. Staff were waiting. Food was timed. Guests would soon need instructions. Claire could not keep calling the truth private while using a public schedule to bury it. Leah arrived at the end of the hallway before Claire answered. She had changed into a slate dress and carried her small clutch like a woman ready for pictures, but her eyes went first to Daniel. Are you all right? No, he said. Claire turned to her. He went to my father's house. On our wedding morning, he let my father put all of this in his head. Leah looked at her son, not Claire. Did Frank ask you to cancel anything? No. Did he come here? No. Then do not give him a role he refused to take. Claire's mouth opened. Nothing useful came out. Leah finally looked at her. If you wanted a private family matter, you should not have made a private man disappear from a public wedding. The words did not raise volume. They raised cost. A photographer's assistant had stopped near the corner with a camera bag. 2 cousins had stopped pretending not to listen. Claire was not exposed to the room, not yet. But the version in which Frank had created the crisis was losing witnesses. That sudden loss of witnesses now frightened her more than Daniel's anger. Daniel turned to Marlene. What happens if we pause the ceremony? Marlene did not pretend the answer was simple. We can hold the room for a short time. Food timing becomes a problem after that. Bar staff are here. Photography is contracted. Guests will need an explanation. Claire seized on the list. Do you hear that? This is what he is doing. My father is costing us money and humiliating everyone without even being here. Frank is not here, Leah said, because he sent Daniel here with a story. Daniel shook his head once. No, he sent me back with a question. Marlene's radio crackled. Someone asked whether the escort card table could be opened. She looked at Daniel because the practical world had chosen him as the person who had to answer. Do not open the hall yet, he said. Claire's face went white. Daniel! I am not canceling in the hallway, he said. I am stopping the part where we pretend nothing happened. Marlene repeated the instruction into her radio. Hold doors. Delay escort cards. No guest seating yet. The words sounded small, but they moved through the building faster than shouting would have. Staff changed direction. The photographer lowered his camera. A cousin pulled out her phone, then thought better of it when Leah looked at her. Claire stepped close enough that her skirt brushed Daniel's shoes. If you loved me, you would protect me from this. He looked tired then, not cruel. I am trying to protect the marriage from starting as this. That sentence stopped her more than anger would have. It named the thing she was about to lose. Not love, not yet, but the ceremony that would make her version harder to challenge. Back at my house, I did not know any of that yet. I knew only that the clock had passed 10:30 and no one had called. The envelope was still on the table, the money still out because Daniel had left it that way. I put the bills back inside, not to hide them, but because staring at them had started to feel like letting Claire's worst sentence sit in my chair. Later, Daniel texted me one line. I stopped the hall from opening. I haven't decided the rest. I read it twice. Then I set the phone down and did nothing. That was harder than calling, harder than driving over, harder than telling him what I thought he should do. A father wants to turn truth into instruction when he is scared. I had given Daniel the truth. The instruction had to be his. At the venue, Marlene moved the delay into professional language. Guests arriving early were told the room would open shortly. The bar remained closed. The photographer was asked to take detail shots. The string players were moved to the side room and given water. Every practical adjustment made the pause more real. Claire tried one more angle. Fine, we delay, but you cannot punish me in front of everyone. I am not going to tell everyone what you did, Daniel said. Then what are you going to tell them? That the ceremony is on hold. For how long? He looked toward the closed hall doors. Until I know whether there is a ceremony. Marlene wrote that down too, because by then the wedding had crossed into event status. Claire saw the words on the clipboard and understood that the beautiful room no longer belonged only to her plan. Daniel turned away from her and called me. When I answered, he said, I am going to ask her again in a room without guests. If she can tell the truth there, I will decide from there. That is your decision, I said. Are you coming? No. He was quiet a moment. Thank you. I did not know then whether he meant for the truth or for staying away. Maybe both. Either way, the next door that opened would not be mine. Marlene gave them the small tasting room behind the bar because it had a door and no windows facing the lobby. Claire went in first, gathering her dress with both hands. Daniel followed. Leah stayed outside, close enough to be found and far enough not to make the conversation hers. Marlene did not enter. She stood in the hallway with the clipboard and the headset, guarding the building from our family. I respected her more for that than I could say. Inside the room, Claire reached for the nearest chair and missed the back of it with her hand. She said he was scaring her. Daniel closed the door and said he was scared too. When she called it one bad decision, he corrected her. One bad decision would have been saying the wrong thing in a hotel room. She had changed the seating chart, blocked calls, given money, and told him grief made Frank choose it. Claire pressed both palms to her eyes. Because I wanted one day. One day where I wasn't the girl from that little house, with the father who smells like machine oil no matter how clean he is. Daniel went still. She hurt herself too late and tried to fix it. Daniel said, I think you mean it exactly the way it sounds. Her tears came then, real or close enough that Daniel could not dismiss them without becoming cruel. I love you. I love him too. I just panicked. Please don't let everyone out there watch us fall apart because I panicked. That was her strongest move, not denial, but collapse. If Daniel said no to that, he would look like the man punishing a crying bride minutes before the ceremony, and Frank, still absent, would be named as the cause. Daniel did not answer her tears. He walked to the small side table where tasting menus were stacked and turned one over. Blank paper. He pushed it toward Claire with a pen. Daniel told her to write what happened. When she stared at him, he kept it to 3 sentences. She gave Frank money, asked him not to come, and told Daniel he chose it because grief made the day hard. Claire called that insane. Daniel called it simple. When she said he wanted a confession in her wedding dress, he answered, I want to know whether you can tell the truth when no one is watching. Claire looked at the paper as if it might stain her hands and asked what happened if she wrote it. Daniel said he would know there was still a person who understood what she had done. When she asked what happened if she did not, his face closed. Then I know the wedding is only a set. She sat but did not pick up the pen. The pause stretched until it became an answer. Outside the tasting room door, Marlene's radio crackled again. Hold was becoming delay. Delay would soon become explanation. Daniel opened the door and told Marlene, without raising his voice, to cancel the first look and hold the ceremony. Claire stood so quickly the chair hit the wall and said he could not just decide that. Daniel said he just had. When she said it was because she would not write his little paper, he answered, because you still think the paper is the problem. That was the line that left the private room and entered the hallway. Leah heard it. Marlene heard it. So did one of Claire's cousins, who turned away too late. Claire saw the listening faces and understood that her safest place had become smaller. The secret was not public, but it was no longer fully private. Claire changed tactics because privacy was failing. She stepped into the hallway and let her voice tremble where more people could hear it. Daniel is stopping the wedding because my father is upset about not coming. It was a careful sentence, not a full lie. Not the truth, a bridge built for frightened relatives. Her cousin Amanda came closer first and asked if her dad was not coming. Claire said he had decided not to and looked at Daniel as if daring him to correct her in front of family. Daniel did not take the bait. He said the ceremony was on hold and that was all guests needed to know. When Claire said these were her people, Daniel answered, then stop using them. Amanda looked between them, losing confidence in the version she had been handed. Marlene stepped forward before the hallway could turn into a family meeting. We need one spokesperson, she said. The room cannot open while the couple is unresolved. Claire seized the practical language. And the food? The bar? The photographer? Who pays for all this delay? That question finally reached my house even though I was not there. I could feel it when Daniel told me later. Money, again. Put a price on the pain, hand the invoice to the person least able to defend himself, and call it fairness. Daniel answered in the hallway that he would deal with the vendors. When Claire asked with what money, he said, "Mine." She said, "So now he costs you money too?" Leah said, "Do not make Frank the cashier for your choices." Claire's face hardened. Tears had failed. Witness pressure had failed. Now she moved toward the last thing she still controlled, the guest's first story. If she got there first, Daniel would spend the day denying. Daniel saw her turn toward the lobby and stepped in front of her. When she said he could not block her from her own guests, he said he could stop her from handing them another version. She asked what he wanted her to say. Nothing. Claire laughed once. That will look wonderful. Bride silent, groom missing, guests waiting. I will speak to them. That frightened her more than silence. She reminded him he had promised not to tell everyone what she did. He said he would not. Then what can you possibly say? Daniel looked at Marlene. Can we gather immediate family first? No details, just enough to stop rumors. Marlene nodded. Side room, 10 minutes. I can keep general guests in the lobby with refreshments if you authorize the cost. Daniel authorized the extra lobby hold. Claire's eyes flashed. You keep spending money like this is noble. He answered, Money is the smallest, honest problem in this building right now. That was the first sentence that made Leah put a hand over her mouth. Not because it was cruel, because it was final in a way a mother recognizes before a bride does. Daniel told Claire he would not shame her in front of everyone, read notes, or talk about cash or her father's kitchen. But he would not let people believe Frank was the reason they were paused. Claire said he was choosing him. Daniel said no, I am choosing not to start with a lie. Marlene gave the instruction to staff. Immediate family to the side room, general guests held in the lobby, no hall opening. The first wave of consequence moved out of the hallway quietly, carried by people with headsets instead of people with old grudges. The side room filled with the people who mattered most. Leah, Claire's aunt, Amanda, Daniel's best man, and 2 older relatives who had arrived early enough to become witnesses by accident. Daniel stood near the door, not at the center. The ceremony is on hold, he said. There is a private family matter that has to be handled before I can make vows honestly. Claire made a sound. He lifted one hand, not to silence her, but to keep the room from turning toward her tears. No one is sick. No one is in danger. Frank Miller did not come here and did not ask me to stop anything. That sentence mattered. It removed me from the role Claire had prepared for me. Amanda looked at Claire and asked what happened. Daniel did not answer the question. That is not for the room. Claire seized on it as proof that Frank got privacy and she did not. Leah said, Privacy is not the same as cover. The best man, a tall man named Eric, asked Daniel if guests needed to be sent home. Daniel said not yet. Marlene entered just long enough to say the lobby could hold for 20 more minutes before catering decisions had to change. She did not mention money, but everyone heard it anyway. Claire wiped her face with the heel of her hand. So I stand here while everyone waits and guesses. Daniel looked at her dress, then at the closed hall door beyond the room. You asked your father to disappear so no one would guess where you came from. I am asking for 20 minutes so I do not disappear what you did. Nobody answered that. The consequence had not become cancellation yet, but the wedding was no longer moving forward. It was being held in place by one question Claire still could not answer cleanly. At my house, the phone stayed silent. That silence was mercy and punishment. I wanted news. I wanted control. I got neither. The ceremony did not die all at once. It lost power the way an old mill line loses pressure. One gauge, one valve, one man finally saying no to the next motion. Daniel asked Marlene for the vendor room. Claire followed because the alternative was standing with family who now knew enough to watch her too closely. Leah stayed with the immediate relatives and did the first decent thing anyone did for me that day. She told them Frank Miller was not in the building and had not asked for a scene. That sentence traveled. Not the whole truth, not the envelope, not the kitchen. Just enough to keep my name from becoming the hook they hung the delay on. In the vendor room, Marlene laid out the practical costs. The plated dinner could be delayed but not saved forever. The bar minimum remained. The photographer's extra hour would bill. The ceremony musicians could wait 30 minutes, then overtime began. The room deposit was already earned by the venue because the date, staff, and setup were real. Claire listened as if numbers were insults. So we lose all of it? Marlene kept her voice neutral. Some costs are fixed. Some can be reduced if we make a decision before guest seating. Daniel looked at the closed banquet doors through the side window. Then we make one. Claire gripped the back of a chair. You are going to cancel our wedding because my father is upset. No, Daniel said. I am canceling the performance because I don't know if there is a marriage under it. That was the first hard consequence. Not a speech, not a slammed door. A sentence that separated love from the stage built around it. The room heard it before Claire accepted it. Marlene asked for exact language, because venues survive on exact language. Daniel gave it to her, and then chose to say it himself. He stood in the lobby near the closed hall doors, not on a stage, not with a microphone. Claire stood 3 steps behind him, still in the dress meant for an entrance she was no longer making. Thank you for being here, Daniel said. The ceremony and banquet are being canceled for today. There is no medical emergency and no danger. This is a private matter between Claire and me. I am asking you not to blame anyone who is not in this building. That last line did the work. It did not clear my name to everyone, but it took the easy weapon out of Claire's hands. Guests reacted the way people do when elegance collapses without drama to guide them. Some whispered. Some stared at their shoes. One of Claire's co-workers lifted her phone and lowered it when Leah looked at her. The gift table, covered in pale linen, suddenly looked too prepared for a future that had just been paused. Claire's aunt asked whether the reception could still happen as a family gathering. Daniel did not answer until he looked at Claire. She gave him nothing but wounded pride. No, he said, not today. Marlene moved quickly after that. Staff closed the bar before it opened. The musicians packed without playing the processional. The photographer asked whether detail photos were still wanted. Claire looked at the flowers, the escort cards, the empty dance floor through the glass, and understood that the grand entrance was gone. You can reschedule a meal, not the moment everyone first sees the bride you wanted to be. The gift table became the next problem. People had brought envelopes, cards, small boxes wrapped in silver paper. A cousin asked Leah whether gifts should go home with guests. Leah looked at Daniel. Daniel looked at Claire. Return anything handed to staff, he said. Anything already on the table stays sealed until people can collect it, or we contact them. Claire flinched. You are making us look like thieves now. No, I am keeping gifts from becoming pressure. That was another loss she had not counted. The table was more than money. It was proof that people had arrived believing in her beautiful version. Watching it stop made the cancellation visible without anyone saying why. Amanda came up to Claire and put both hands on her shoulders. Tell me what to say to Aunt Linda. Claire saw an opening. Tell her my father did this. Tell her he couldn't stand not being the center after Daniel went to see him. Amanda's hands dropped. Daniel heard it. So did Leah. So did Eric, the best man, who had been trying to keep cousins away from the lobby doors. Do not say that again, Daniel said. Claire turned on him. Why? You protected his privacy. Am I the only one who has to stand here with nothing? You are standing here with the truth available to you. And if I don't say it? Then you stand with the consequence. Those were hard words, but they did not expose the envelope. Daniel still kept the private center private. Claire was the one trying to pull me into public blame, because public blame was cheaper than private truth. That choice cost her another witness. Marlene returned with 2 numbers on a sticky note. The reduced catering loss if they stopped before plating, and the larger number if they waited another half hour. She gave it to Daniel first, then to Claire, because by then both names were still on the event. Claire looked at the numbers and laughed without humor. So this is it. We burn money, send people home, and pretend that is moral. Daniel took the sticky note back. No, we stop burning truth because money is already burning. He signed the venue change order for cancellation of ceremony and banquet service. Marlene did not make it dramatic. She showed the lines, explained which deposits were already earned, which services could be reduced, and which vendor conversations would happen after the building was empty. Her voice stayed practical. That helped. Practical words keep pain from becoming theater. Claire refused to sign at first. "I am not agreeing." "Then don't," Daniel said. "I am stopping my side." That was the moment the wedding facade broke completely. Not because every contract was settled, not because the law had spoken, but because a groom can withdraw his own yes before the room is opened. The ceremony needs more than flowers and a schedule. It needs two people willing to stand there. Claire signed after Marlene explained that refusing would not force Daniel to proceed. Her signature looked nothing like the looping name on the invitation. Leah helped Marlene draft the message to general guests. The ceremony and reception would not proceed today. Travel apologies, private family matter. Gifts could be collected or returned by arrangement. No blame, no details. Claire read the message and said, "It makes me look abandoned." Daniel answered, "It makes everyone else less used." I learned about the cancellation in pieces. First, a text from Daniel. "We canceled today." I did not give details. Then nothing for 11 minutes. Then Leah called. "Mr. Miller," she said, "I wanted you to hear from someone here that your name was not used as the reason." I sat down because my knees had become old all at once. "Thank you." "I am sorry." "For what?" "That your daughter thought my family required this." That was a careful mercy. Leah did not say Claire had done it for Daniel or because of Daniel. She returned the blame to the person who had made the choice. After we hung up, I went to the kitchen table and looked at the envelope. The money was still inside. The crew photograph was still above it. Nothing in my house had moved, but somewhere across town a ballroom had become empty before it ever became a wedding. That afternoon, Claire's car pulled into my driveway. She was still in the dress, not perfectly. The hem had gray marks near the bottom. Her hair had started to fall, and one side of her makeup had been rubbed thin. She sat in the car longer than she had 2 days earlier. This time she was not rehearsing how to buy my absence. She was rehearsing how to make me pay for the cost of it. When I opened the door, she did not say hello. "They are going to bill us for everything they can," she said. I kept one hand on the doorframe. "Come in if you are here to talk. Stay there if you are here to collect." Her face twisted. "Do not finish me off too, Dad." Behind me, on the table, the envelope waited for its last use. That sentence was built to find the old bridge. She hurt, I paid, and neither of us named what had broken. I felt my hand move toward my pocket before I stopped it. Then I saw the gray hem of the dress she had not walked down the aisle in, and the pity in me had to stand beside the truth instead of pushing it aside. Claire stepped inside without waiting for permission. The dress brushed the threshold, leaving a faint gray line on the bottom lace. She saw the envelope on the table and stared at it as if it had betrayed her by staying real. When she said I had kept it out, I told her I had kept it safe. She asked if it was safe for Daniel or my little evidence table. "For this." She looked around the kitchen, at the crew photo, the yellow pad, Ruth's mug, and said she had lost her wedding. I said yes. When she told me to say something else, I said, "You lost your wedding." The cruelty in repeating it was not the point. The point was refusing to turn consequence into fog. She pulled a folded printout from a small bridal purse. Venue balance, catering minimum, photographer add-on. The paper shook in her hand. "This is what your truth costs," she said. "No," I said. "That is what the room costs when a lie stops before dinner." Claire laughed without joy and said I sounded proud. I said I was not. She said I had got what I wanted. Daniel had chosen me. I told her Daniel had chosen not to marry blind. "Because you made sure he couldn't." I let that sit. There was enough truth in it to deserve space. I had shown him the envelope, Marlene's fact, and the crew photo. I had not forced his decision, but I had made sure the lie had to meet him before the vows. I said I had made sure Daniel had a choice. When she asked what about her, I said, "You had one before you came here with cash." She slapped the printout on the table and said she had been trying to survive that room. I said, "By removing me from it." She answered, You would not have fit. The sentence came out exhausted, not sharp. That almost made it worse. Cruelty shouted in panic can be blamed on panic. Cruelty spoken from tired certainty is a door opening onto the real room. I pointed to the chair across from me and told Claire to sit down. She told me not to use that voice. I said, "Then don't make me use the father you paid to erase." She sat. The dress spread around the chair like an accusation against the kitchen. She said she needed help. When I asked with what, she said the bills. Daniel said he would handle his side, but the venue is in both our names. I can't carry this alone. At last, the request stood in the open. Not forgiveness, not truth. Help, with an amount attached somewhere off stage. She turned the printout toward me and circled a number with her fingernail. The same hand that had slid me $2,000 now pointed at a bill 10 times larger. I stood, went to the table, and picked up the white envelope. Claire watched it as if it were a verdict. I told her the envelope was hers. Her eyes narrowed and she told me not to be dramatic. I said, "I am being exact." I placed the envelope in front of her. $2,000, untouched. The note is still inside. My writing is on the back. She did not pick it up and said it did not help. I told her it helped with what she had paid for. When she said she had paid for nothing and made a mistake, I said, "Then take back the mistake." Her hand hovered over the envelope and stopped. If she took it, the story she wanted weakened. If she refused it, the money stayed between us like proof she still wanted the purchase to count. She asked if I thought this made me clean. I said no, and that surprised her. "I was not clean when I took it," I said. "I was hurt and old and tired of begging to be wanted. I took the envelope because some part of me wanted you to see what you were doing. That was my part. This is me ending it." When she asked what I was ending, I said, "Buying silence, buying presence, buying absence, buying forgiveness. I am done using money as the only way we talk." Claire looked at the crew photograph above the table. Her face changed, but not enough. "You always make it about your work." "No, you did that when you decided my work was the thing your guests couldn't see." She picked up the envelope then. Not because she wanted it, because not picking it up had become worse. With that one motion, the next bill stopped being mine before she could ask again. "I cannot cover the rest," I said. "Not today, not next week, not when the final invoice comes." Her fingers tightened around the envelope until it bent. "So that's it," she said. "You keep your pride and I clean up the wreckage." "No, I keep my boundary, and you clean up the part you made." "I made it because I was scared." "Then start there with Daniel." She looked toward the door as if Daniel might be standing behind it. "He won't answer me. Today? Maybe ever." There was the grief under the anger. Real, but late. I let myself feel it without paying for it. "I cannot fix that with a check," I said. "You could make the money part easier." "I could, and then what would you learn?" Her mouth tightened. "That my father still loves me." "No." "You would learn that I will pay for being erased as long as the invoice is ugly enough." She pushed back from the table. The envelope lay in her lap now, wrinkled across the corner. "You are punishing me." "I am stopping." "Same thing. Not to the person who has been paying." That hit. She looked at the yellow pad then, at the list of transfers. I had not meant to show it again, but it was there. Dress deposit, florist, apartment, course, car. Small bridges I had built until she mistook the bridge for a road she owned. "I didn't ask for all of that," she said. "No. Sometimes I offered before you had to. That was my mistake." "Then why am I the only one paying for it?" "Because your mistake asked me to disappear." She had no answer for that, and for once she did not borrow one from fear. I turned the vendor printout back toward her. "This paper goes with you. You and Daniel can decide what is legally yours, what is his, and what can be negotiated. My name is not on it." Claire folded the printout badly and put it with the envelope. She looked smaller holding both. Not younger, smaller. There is a difference. "What am I supposed to say to him?" she asked. "The thing you would not write." That I bought my father's absence. Start there. She waited for me to soften it. I did not. My phone buzzed. Daniel's name appeared. Claire saw it and went rigid. I answered on speaker because hiding calls had done enough damage. Daniel. I am sorry to interrupt, he said. His voice sounded worn down. Is Claire there? Yes. Claire stood but said nothing. Daniel did not ask to speak to her. I only wanted to ask if, when things settle, I could have a copy of the crew photo. Not today, whenever you are comfortable. Claire's eyes moved to the photograph. For the first time since she arrived, the bills left her face. You still want that? She asked. Daniel heard her and answered carefully. Yes. That part of the truth matters to me. She closed her eyes. The envelope bent further in her hand. I will make you a copy, I said. Thank you, Daniel answered. Then, after a pause, Claire, I am not ready to talk about us tonight, but you need to talk to him without asking for money. The call ended. Claire stood in my kitchen with the returned envelope, the vendor printout, and no easy way to turn either into my responsibility. When she left, she did not hug me. I did not ask her to. At the door, she said, I don't know how to do this without help. Then learn what kind of help you are asking for before you ask. She walked to her car, carrying the money she had used to remove me. This time, I let her carry it alone. For 3 days after the wedding that did not happen, my house became quieter than after Ruth's funeral. Grief has visitors at first. Casseroles, phone calls, people who do not know what to say. Consequence has fewer visitors. People wait to see which version survives before they knock. Claire did not call the first night. Daniel did not either. Leah sent one text. Thank you for letting him decide without carrying your anger. I read it 3 times and answered in the morning. You raised a good man. She replied. Ruth did too. I sat down. On the 4th day, Daniel came by for the photograph. He wore jeans and a dark jacket, not a suit, and looked older than he had on my porch. I had made 2 copies, one for him, one for me because the original had started to feel tired from carrying so much. He held the copy carefully and asked if Claire knew I was giving it to him. I said no. When he asked if she should, I said not everything true has to ask her permission. He nodded and said they were not getting married this month. I had expected it, but hearing it still landed hard. When he added maybe not ever, I told him that was honest. He said it did not feel kind. Honest and kind don't always arrive in the same car. He almost smiled, then looked at the picture again and said he kept thinking about the scarf. I told him it was Ruth's and that Claire knew. He swallowed. Then she knew more than she let me see. That was the grief he had come for, not only the photo. He was mourning a woman still alive, which is a particular kind of cruelty. We sat at the table without coffee. Some conversations do not need a cup to hide behind. Daniel said Claire claimed he had destroyed her. I asked if he had. He said he had stopped the wedding. I told him that was not the same as destroying her. When he said it felt close, I said, it often does. He looked toward the envelope's empty place and said Claire had told him I gave the money back. I told him I returned what she used to buy me. When he said she called that punishment, I said, it was a receipt. Daniel nodded slowly. I don't know how to love someone after seeing that. I did not answer quickly. I had loved Ruth for 41 years, and even that did not make me an expert on what love can survive. People speak too easily about forgiveness when they are not the ones who have to sleep beside what happened. I told him maybe he did not start with love. Maybe he started with whether she could tell the truth when it cost her. He said she had not yet. Then you have your answer for today. He folded the photo sleeve under one arm and said Claire had asked to reschedule small. Courthouse, dinner later, no guests. I asked what he said. That a smaller room does not make a cleaner lie. That was when I knew Daniel would be all right, even if the relationship was not. Pain had not made him cruel. It had made him precise. Before he left, his phone buzzed. He glanced at it and showed me without handing it over. Claire had written, "If your mother hadn't pushed, we would be married right now." Daniel typed one sentence while sitting at my kitchen table. My mother asked for truth. You are still blaming witnesses. He did not send another message after that. Boundaries are sometimes most real when they are short. Claire's first message to me came that night. It was not an apology. I hope you are happy. You got to be the victim, and I got to be the villain. I read it once and put the phone face down. The old me would have answered before the screen went dark, trying to make the room softer for her even though she had filled it with smoke. I did not answer. 2 days later, she sent a photo of the vendor printout with one line circled. No words, just the amount. I did not answer that either. A bill without a sentence is still a request for money. The third message came a week after Daniel picked up the photo. I keep hearing myself say he would not fit. I don't know where that sentence came from, but I know I said it. I stood in the kitchen for a long time with the phone in my hand. That message did not ask for money. It did not ask me to call Daniel. It did not ask me to fix the venue, the guests, the shame, or the future. It did one thing I had asked for without ever believing I would get it. It named a sentence. I answered that it was a place to start. 3 hours later, she wrote that she was not ready to come over. I told her not to come over. Another hour passed before she asked if I was still her dad. That was the cruelest question because it was the easiest to answer badly. If I wrote only yes, she might hear the old bridge opening. If I wrote anything colder, I would punish the one message that had not asked me to pay. I wrote, yes, but I am not your wallet for hard feelings anymore. She did not answer that night. I slept badly anyway. 2 weeks passed before I saw her. Not for dinner, not for a father-daughter repair scene. She came by on a rainy Tuesday to pick up a box of childhood things she had stored in my basement and forgotten. That was the kind of errand people choose when they want contact with an exit built into it. She wore jeans, no makeup, and a sweatshirt from the college I had helped pay for. I noticed and said nothing. Some truths do not need to be thrown like tools. In the basement, she found a shoebox of old-school programs. On top was a Father's Day card from 3rd grade. A crayon hard hat on the front. Inside, in crooked letters, "My dad fixes big things." Claire sat on the bottom step with the card in both hands and said she had forgotten it. I told her I had not. Of course you didn't. The old bitterness almost entered her voice and then stopped. That stop mattered more than an apology would have. She was learning where the old road began. She put the card back in the box and said Daniel still was not meeting her. I said I knew. Leah had returned the shower gift from her sister. I told Claire I was sorry. When she asked if I was, I said yes. I can be sorry it hurts and still not undo why it happened. She nodded once and said she had paid part of the venue bill. I asked if she used the envelope. She said no. I waited. She had deposited it separately and did not know what to do with it yet. I said good. When she questioned that, I said, if you don't know what it is, don't spend it. She looked at me then, really looked, and for the first time since the wedding, she did not ask me to make the sentence easier. After she left, I went upstairs and took the original crew photograph off the wall. The frame had dust along the top edge. I cleaned it with the corner of my sleeve and put it back straighter than before. Daniel's copy was gone. Claire's envelope was gone. The vendor printout was gone. What stayed was the picture of 6 men in hard hats, Ruth's scarf around my neck, and the kind of work my daughter had tried to hide because she forgot it had carried her. That is what consequence did in my house. It did not bring the wedding back. It did not give me a dance, a toast, or a photograph beside my daughter in a white dress. It did not make Daniel my son-in-law. It did not make Claire suddenly brave. It did one smaller, harder thing. It made the price visible. Claire and I talk now, but not every day. When she calls, I let it ring once before I answer, not as punishment, as a reminder to myself that I am allowed to choose the moment I pick up. She has not asked me for money since that afternoon. I do not know if that will last. People do not become new because one wedding collapses. They become possible, maybe, if they stop charging other people to carry the old version. Daniel sent me a photo 2 months later. The crew picture stood on a shelf in his apartment, beside a small photograph of his father. No caption, no speech, just 2 men who were not there for the wedding, both still affecting the room. I showed Claire the photo when she came by to get the last box from the basement. She looked at it for a long time and said he had kept it. I said yes. After everything. I answered, because it was true before everything. She nodded and did not cry. That was better than crying. The empty place at the wedding table never became mine again. I do not want it. A seat bought with shame is not a seat. It is a receipt. If my daughter ever sits beside me in public again, it will not be because I paid, forgave fast, or agreed to be smaller for the room. It will be because she can look at the old photograph, at the work, at me, and not call any of it something to hide.